Hello, hello, hello. So good to be here with all of you tonight. I am not Ethan. I'm already seeing comments checking in on Ethan. He is not here with us tonight. He is doing well, and he has been recovering from COVID. He's just kind of getting back into the swing of lots of things. But I know I am not an Ethan replacement, but I am glad to at least be here with all of you tonight in community to chat about all things OCD. So as we are going through some disclaimers, please feel free to let us know where you're watching from. Say hi. I like to see everybody who's here. We always like to start with a fun question, which I always seem to get to this point and not have decided what that fun question is. Oh, hi, Amy. Hello, everyone from the land of the melting snow. I'm envious. We have no snow who are here in Atlanta, and I wish that we did. I guess, you know what, Amy, I'm going to steal that as our question tonight. With all of the weather over the past few weeks, no, I'm not going to say how much snow. Actually, no, I just want to know what is the temperature where you are in this moment? That is our question for tonight. What is your temperature? And I think it's really interesting because I think we're going to have some folks that are about 10 degrees. I think we're going to have some folks who are significantly warmer, and feel free to specify Fahrenheit or Celsius, because I know we have some folks kind of in different areas as well. So Joseph, hi from Southern California. Yeah, Amy, please give me some snow. Would love to get some snow from you. And I will go ahead and jump into some of our disclaimers, and feel free to drop in the chat where you're from and what your temperature is. So this live stream is educational and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please work with your provider or contact a local clinician. You can use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find-help to locate a trained clinician near you. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or if you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. You can also access online at www.988lifeline.org. Go to your local emergency room or call 911. And finally, we want to create a safe space. We want to be kind and respectful to everyone, because at the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. But a note that this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and it's being recorded. So keep that in mind as you ask questions, as you engage, because you're all here advocating, right? This is my favorite thing about this stream in particular. Everybody's here advocating, and we are here to support one another. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's see. Oh, hi, Valerie. Hi, hi, hi. Oh, and 72. I'm going to go visit Val. Hi, Matt. So good to see you. -2. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Matt. We love you, but I will not be visiting right now. I see train wreck, -3, 26 in Fahrenheit. Also very cold. Made it to the 40s, Amy. Joseph, 76. Oh, I see Beth Carducci. All the things. So I'm curious to continue to, yes, anytime. Yeah, Val, I will, as I look at all of these temperatures, I will definitely be coming to visit you. And I know Ethan and I want to do that anyway. Hi, Spence. So good to see you. So excited to see folks coming in. And we are going to have just a really open community conversation, the same way that y'all usually do with Ethan. And I actually, on my Instagram a little while ago, put out a question box for folks to kind of plug in what they would like to chat about tonight. So I'm going to kind of ask some of these questions. I'm going to answer them from my perspective. And I'd also love to see some conversation in the chat around these things. In addition to that, please, please, please plug in any questions that you would like to ask, that you'd like me to talk about, that you would like to talk to folks in the chat about, and we'll make this a real dialogue. And I see Summer is, Beth, 37 in Philly. Summer, hi, Summer. So good to see you. Hello from Kansas. And Brooke, totally understand that you can't stick around. I hope your son's concert goes well. 44 in Wisconsin is warm. Huh. Well, we love you. We do not love 44 degrees being, at least I don't love 44 degrees being warm, but we do love you. So awesome. 34 in Ohio. Oof. Y'all, I'll say it was about 11 in Atlanta last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And that was not my favorite. That was not my favorite for sure. So all of you who are in cold temperatures all the time, kudos to you for navigating. So, the first question that I got, and I'm curious what y'all think about this, but the first question that I got, and I'll drop these for Brennan behind the scenes too as I go through these if we want to put them up with the IOCDF. But the first question that I got in the comments on Instagram today was, why does OCD latch on to the things most important to me? Why does OCD latch onto the things most important to me? And again, keep loading up any questions you have and stuff that you want to chat about too. But we'll start with a few of these, and I'm curious for y'all to respond to. So my thought on this, why does OCD latch on to stuff most important to me? Well, we know that obsessions are really based around just intrusive thoughts, right? And intrusive thoughts are just thoughts, totally random thoughts. Intrusive thoughts does not mean that it's anything important, that it's anything significant. It's just our brain producing content based on the things that we see around us. But with OCD, we know that these thoughts get really, really sticky. And the things that stick are the things that are the most significant and the most important to us. So we can have all of these different thoughts go in and out of our brain throughout the day, thousands and thousands of thoughts. But the ones that we notice with OCD happen to be the ones that are the most important to us because we put so much emphasis on those thoughts. And the really tricky part about that is when we respond to that thought and continue to emphasize it, it gets even more stuck. And that's really tough. So for me, I, had throughout kind of my OCD journey, a lot of really stuck thoughts containing things related to harm or related to faith or related to being a bad person. A lot for me were violent and sexual intrusive thoughts. And what would happen as soon as I would kind of get that thought and it would pop into my head, I'd go, wait, why did I have that thought that I could be a murderer? That must be an important thought. I need to try to get rid of it. And as soon as we try to engage in compulsions to get rid of it, as soon as we tell our brain, oh, this is really important, it sticks even more. So by nature, the ones that get stuck are the ones that are the most important to us. And this gets even trickier because the more we try to get rid of it by doing compulsions, the more it gets more and more and more stuck. I'm curious for folks here in the comments. My experience has always been that I would be okay with having any OCD theme or intrusive thought, except the one that I'm stuck on at that particular moment. And I don't mean this in a way that is ever minimizing to anyone else's theme, but anytime that I've ever been stuck, I've looked around and said, well, I would be totally okay with that theme, just not this one. And for me, that's the precise reason I'm stuck on it, right? It's the one thing that I am not okay having. So it's the one thing I'm trying to get rid of. And as a result, the one thing that gets even more stuck. So again, OCD latching on to the things that are the most important to us. So I'd love to hear, again, in the comments, if that is something that has been common for you. I'm going to scroll up a little bit because I do see a question from Summer at 7:05. I'm struggling with my job while having OCD. How do you manage high perfectionism and high anxiety at work? It's so hard. So Summer, thank you, first of all, for sharing this. I know it's something, a couple of our SIGs address this a little bit. We have a helping professionals with OCD SIG. And this is actually something that we were talking about last week on Monday. And this just being such kind of a challenge, especially when folks around us might not understand OCD. It sometimes can feel like things take so much longer, whether we're taking notes on clients or work that we're doing or sending emails or wanting to make sure that everything is okay. And that can be really tough. So from my experience, that was in school chaplaincy for a really long time before I worked in the OCD area. And it was really tough for so many reasons. For me, that came out again in wanting to send all of the perfect emails, but even in pastoral work, wanting to make sure I said the right thing. In school chaplaincy, I spent a lot of time with kids and teaching. I spent time going back to classrooms to make sure I didn't offend anyone, to make sure I didn't say or do anything bad. And this level of anxiety was absolutely through the roof. I think for me, managing came through using treatment skills and tools. It came through doing some really, really hard work with ERP, but also self-compassion and starting to give myself permission to not have to have it together all the time, to not have to be perfect all the time. And that's something, if I'm honest, Summer, and I'm curious kind of how you feel about this, that's still really hard for me, even after a lot of ERP work, even after a lot of ACT work. It can be really, really tough to be okay with making mistakes or with not being perfect. But I think learning to manage that for me has come with actually giving myself permission to not have it together all the time and to walk away from work sometimes when things aren't finished or when things aren't perfect. It's also then in those moments of high anxiety, giving myself permission to take a pause, to use my skills and tools, to plug into mindfulness. And I want to echo, I know you said it's so hard. It is so hard. And it's something, again, I still struggle with, especially in the perfectionism area. And I want you to know that it is something that we are totally navigating with you and on the journey together. And would love to have you as a part of that SIG if that's something that you would like to be a part of too, because this is something that we talk about often of people in all different fields. So thank you. I see lots of hellos. Hello, 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 amazing humans. I see awesome conversations about peer support and folks wanting to support others. I love that. Beth, thank you so much. I know you've also been sharing about your experiences, and you have just taken these amazing leaps of faith. I know in part because of connection with so many people on this chat tonight. So thank you so much for all that you do. And Summer, thank you also for sharing. It can be so difficult with needing additional support and not being able to afford it at this particular time. And I'm so glad that you are on here tonight. And while these streams, I know, are not in any way a replacement for therapy, I hope that you feel loved and supported and in community, and know that we are absolutely lifting you up. So I would also love, and this is something that you can plug into kind of down below in the chat. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of kind of some of the awesome self-help resources or streams that we've had on recently that are really awesome. I know Reed Wilson has some awesome stuff. Kim Quinlan has some awesome stuff. So we have some really awesome kind of programs for folks as well. But would also just love to connect with you. I'm glad you're here. Let's see. So let's see. HG at 709. Thoughts on how someone with OCD should approach making a decision regarding a family member's end of life care who does not have a living will and is no longer able to make decisions for themselves. Wow, this is a big question. Thank you for asking this. And actually, I'm going to step back from the OCD component and respond to this from a chaplain component. So I used to work with end of life issues, actually, with lots of families, doing hospital chaplaincy before school chaplaincy and trauma work. And I think with OCD, sometimes it feels like we have to approach things in a particular way, or like we have to absolutely get it right, or like we have to have all of the answers. And whenever we ask a question and say, with OCD, how should I approach this? I like to ask folks, well, how would someone who doesn't have OCD approach this? Do you have other family members around you who might not have OCD who are navigating this issue? And I would love for OCD, as much as it often can be such a factor in our life, to not be a factor in this decision for you. And for you to know that whatever choice you all make, I know that it's really challenging in these moments. And I also know that you're doing the best that you can, and that your family is doing the best that you can. And whatever decision that you're making together, that will be enough. But I think OCD comes in and makes something that I've already seen as so difficult for so many families. OCD makes it feel like we have to get it right, especially when decision-making is already so difficult. So that's my question for you. And I would love to hear, do you have other family members around you who are walking this journey, or clinicians or chaplains without OCD who might be able to help you navigate this? And Beth, I do see all of the fear going on with the incident that you were mentioning of being without a mask for minutes and feeling like you have to climb this mountain at this point. And oh my goodness, I know that's so hard. and also so proud of you for continuing to lean in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hmm. Let's see. Oh, and HG when the doctors are asking about changing the code status. Well, and I'm very curious. Are there other people with you in this moment? I think with or without OCD, oh my goodness, these are such hard things. And I've been in that space, I've been in that room. I know how hard it is. And I'm hoping that you have people around you for love and support. So I would love to hear what that looks like for you. Okay, let's see if there's some more questions down here. So I see Matt at 7-Eleven. For me, OCD has latched on to me in so many ways, so many things that I hold value onto the most. Social situations, family, magical thinking, with all of that too, and my favorite sports teams. But the way I've learned to have a mindset shift with this is that OCD is ego dystonic. OCD is ego dystonic. So if folks are looking at Matt's comment at 7-Eleven on Facebook, OCD is ego dystonic means that it opposes the things that we value most. It goes against everything that is significant and everything that is important to us. So Matt says, it doesn't define me. It never will. OCD is a liar, a trickster. And when it feels the most ickiest, I give myself compassion and use mindfulness, knowing what this has taken away from me, and I'm going to take it back one step at a time. Thank you so much for that, Matt. And yes, OCD is ego dystonic. It's a liar. It's a trickster, all kinds of tongue twisters. And it feels really, really icky. And that doesn't mean it's telling the truth. And I think there's something really powerful in recognizing that. I see Amy saying it's demoralizing. Absolutely. Let's see. So I see Irma at 7-Eleven. I've been having more intrusive thoughts and anxiety this past week, also dealing with a cold. I have the urge to understand something. That is a sensation that triggers me, also feeling upset, and I fall into mental compulsions. So just in responding to this, I do want to let you know that when we're sick, and I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are sick right now. I know y'all know Ethan just got over COVID. I recently got over COVID, but also colds, flu, so many different things. I think I've had 4 or 5 conversations today with folks that are sick and are saying, my OCD is really spiked in the midst of being sick. That has always been my experience. I think when we're navigating something physically and we're trying to get through a cold and we already feel kind of junky, it's like, well, of course, OCD is going to come up and going to kind of spike in a big way, because we are using kind of our energy and our skills and tools for other things like getting better. So I want you to give yourself so much compassion that navigating what we would normally navigate with OCD might be a little bit more challenging. But the sensation piece that you're talking about, I want you to know that this is something that comes up that can be pretty common with OCD. We might have a sensation that kind of triggers us or that leads to a particular obsession, and then we might fall into that mental compulsion. I think OCD sometimes comes in and says, well, I really did feel this sensation, so it has to be something real. And that isn't the case. Going back to what Matt was saying before, even if it feels real, even if there's some sort of sensation associated, if it looks like OCD and it smells like OCD, it's probably OCD. The mental compulsion piece I know can be tricky. And I have a question about that a little bit further down that, depending on questions in the chat, we'll try to get into as well. Okay. Oh, so many great questions and discussion. Thank y'all for jumping on and helping me out here. So I see Melissa at 7-Eleven. Hey, Katie, I was wondering about advocacy burnout. That's what I'm calling it. But maybe I feel overwhelmed and overstimulated by doing advocacy sometimes. How to overcome that? Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. This is such a significant question. And I think anytime we're doing something where we're helping others, we can get to a place where we start to experience burnout. Again, I always lean on my kind of chaplaincy school experience and OCD and minister kind of work. And we talk about burnout all the time in chaplaincy. And it's the same for clinicians, but it's also the same for folks who are doing peer support. It's the same for folks doing advocacy, the same for folks who are educators, who are really in any position where you're working with people. And I think with advocacy in particular, and Melissa, I'm wondering what type of advocacy you're talking about, because it's taken on so many forms. Advocacy can be what we're doing tonight on these video streams. It can be everyone here in the comments. It also might be on social media. It might be kind of one-to-one advocacy. It might be legislative advocacy. It could be creative advocacy. And I think it is so awesome and so cool that we have all of these different avenues that, quite honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, we really didn't have. And it's like such a cool thing. But it also can be really overwhelming. And I think particularly when social media comes into play. So I'm curious if you're thinking from a social media standpoint, it can feel like advocacy is a 24/7 job. I know we have a town hall coming up on Tuesday about OCD in the media and in the headlines. Advocacy can feel 24/7 when there are always headlines that are misusing or misunderstanding the term OCD. It can feel so overwhelming to have to like knock down every single stigma post that's out there on social media. It can also feel really overwhelming if every time you go on to your Instagram account or every time you open your email and you're advocating, you're seeing folks who are having a tough time. And I want you to know that it is so beautiful, whatever ways that you're advocating, that you are doing that. But you have to care for yourself first. And when you're starting to feel like you're sliding down into that space of burnout, it's okay to take some steps back. And I think with OCD, it feels like everything has to be black or white. It feels like I have to be doing 10,000 things for advocacy, or I can't be doing advocacy at all. And that's not the case. I think with OCD, just like with treatment, it's all about finding the gray. And if you're noting, which you are, and I think that's such an awesome thing to notice, you're feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated in this moment, your body might be letting you know, oh, maybe I can take a step back. Maybe I can do some self-care. That doesn't mean stop advocating. That might mean setting some boundaries around when you're advocating or how, or around taking some you time. And I think all of those things are okay. I'll be fully transparent. I'm at a place in my life right now where I am having, I'll say, a tough time setting boundaries around things. I'm finishing my doctoral program and launching some new things with business. And there are not enough hours in the day. And I started to feel really stressed and kind of felt myself going down a burnout path and want to do well in all the things I'm doing. And I've had to take a step back and set some boundaries around things. And for me, there's always so much guilt that comes with that. And yet I'm already starting to see that it's creating space that I can continue to be excited about the things that I'm doing and give myself to those things. So I want you to know it's never selfish. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling kind of advocacy burnout, giving yourself that space will actually give you the space to continue to advocate in meaningful ways. I feel like I could go on about this for a long time, so I'm going to keep moving down the line. Oh, Matt, thank you for sharing that with Summer. And joining that support group. I love all, yeah, Summer, I was gonna invite you to all the things after too. So please contact me as well. I want to invite you to all the groups and you can come join us in all the ways because we just love you. Let's see. Yes, and Beth, so glad that your brother is okay. Oh, y'all are advocating in big ways together. I see Erica. Amy, I am not a big specialist in terms of addiction. So I want to be clear. I'm not a clinician, and kind of my specialties are faith and OCD and scrupulosity related stuff. But there are often overlaps between substance use disorders and different types of addiction and OCD. This is something that comes up often, and it's something that I would encourage you to plug into one of our ask the experts or one of our kind of specialty talks to talk more about. But this is something I know for many in our community that can be a challenge, and it's something that a lot of our advocates talk about really widely. Okay. See Erica. Hi, Erica. Love Lana. Hello. Yeah, Beth, OCD didn't take the night off, even though it was an emergency. I kind of want to put this on a billboard because it's so true. And isn't that the most frustrating thing? It's like life stuff happens, emergencies happen, and OCD doesn't take the night off. OCD is just still there, packing a suitcase and coming along for the ride. But what I want you to hear, and I know we've kind of gone back and forth on this on Instagram too, so we've chatted about this a little bit in different comments, is you had this emergency, you had this thing that was happening. OCD didn't take the night off, and you fought your OCD in the midst of that emergency when all of these things were going on. You fought your OCD in support of your brother. And that is like the biggest win under the sun. So we know that OCD doesn't want to take a night off, but I think at the same time, those moments, it can be so tough to continue to fight and to step toward value driven things. And you did that. And that is so inspiring and shows us how far that you've come. So just really grateful for the way that you continue to share. Love, Matt, I see you continuing to invite Summer, all of this, everyone advocating for each other, all of the things. I'm going to keep reading down and see if there are any other comments. HG, 3 siblings, apparently your decision will determine the majority. That is incredibly challenging. So again, apart from the OCD perspective that makes it feel like we have to get it right, I want you to know that there is no right or wrong in this moment, and whatever your decision is enough. And beyond the OCD piece, if you just need someone to talk to or support, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat with you on Instagram or via email about this, because I know that this is just so tough. And I want you to know that while there isn't a right or wrong, it can be so tricky. And I want you to know that you're not alone in that. So I'm sorry that you are going through that. Adrian at 716, it feels like my OCD came out of nowhere. I feel like I am trapped in my brain and I just wish it would go back to nowhere like it came from. Oh my goodness. This is another one I wish we could like put up on a billboard. OCD can feel like it came out of nowhere. Absolutely. I think for so many people, there's kind of these two different things that I often hear about. For some folks, it can feel like, well, I've had OCD since before I can remember. And for others, it feels like I was living my life and all of a sudden OCD just emerged and now it's here and I wish it would go away. And I think both of these things are so incredibly common. Adrian, I think the really great news is that while OCD likes to continue to pack a suitcase and doesn't want to go back where it came from as much as we would probably like to shove it somewhere, there's a lot of hope through evidence-based treatments like the kinds that we talk about in this stream, like exposure and response prevention. And for me, if you would have asked me in 2018 or 2019, I would have said that I wasn't going to be able to continue to have a life. I don't really know that I even thought that I would be here, to be completely honest. And treatment, which I was very skeptical about at different points, and skeptical about folks who told me that it was possible to get better, it saved my life. It changed my life. And I'm still someone who has OCD. I think I'll navigate OCD for the rest of my life, but not in a way that it's ever in the driver's seat again. It doesn't impact me in profound ways. There are often times that I forget I even have OCD. So I think there's a really kind of interesting dynamic of, yes, we wish it would totally go away. I think we wish it would just kind of, magically go back where it came from. And yet it's here in this moment. And I want you to know that there's a lot of hope, and that's coming from someone who didn't think that was possible. So even with it being there, not going back where it came from, we can step forward without it impacting us. Beth, yeah, forgetting to put a mask on was a good sign because you were in the moment of the things that you were doing. Yeah, and Amy just said the same thing. You were focused on what was the most important at the time, Beth. I'm sure folks are confused because I always forget that there's a YouTube and a Facebook conversation going on at once. So if you do not know what we're talking about, we can embrace the uncertainty. I see Valerie, self-compassion and remembering that we are human. I'm actually going to pull into a question I had on Instagram a little bit earlier because of what Val just said, and I'll drop this so that we can put this up as well. I think this is a really important question. Self-compassion feels irresponsible. How do I do it anyways? Self-compassion feels irresponsible. How do I do it anyways? I love this question. And especially as someone that self-compassion was tough for me, is tough for me, continues to be tough for me. I know Ethan talks about it on this stream as well. But the reason it was so tough for me, and one of the reasons I resonated with this question, is that because of my intrusive thoughts for such a long time, I felt like I wasn't deserving of self compassion. I felt like I wasn't deserving of happiness. I felt like I wasn't deserving of joy in any way, shape, or form. So there was almost kind of this self sabotage component where I felt like, oh, well, I can't be nice to myself. I have these intrusive thoughts. It feels irresponsible to disregard them and to be nice to myself. And I think at the time, I also saw self compassion as bubble baths and spa days, and it's really not. Self compassion is hard work. If you follow any of Kim Quinlan's stuff, who's one of our awesome IOCDF advocates, she does so much wonderful work around self compassion as this really active practice of seeking and making the effort to treat ourselves in the same loving way that we would treat those around us, that we would treat a friend. And that can be hard. I'll say that is hard for me. And it's an active choice each and every day to say, yeah, you know what? I can have intrusive thoughts. Those intrusive thoughts can feel irresponsible. And yet, no matter what those thoughts say, I'm deserving of love and compassion from those around me and from myself, just like I would give to someone else. So I'm also curious what folks have to say about that as we continue to kind of move down this chat. Let's see. So much love and support, Melissa. Thank you for continuing to share about, social media advocacy. And I hope I hope what I shared resonated with you, that you can take steps back and care for yourself and continue to advocate. It's actually what helps you to continue to advocate. Zachary at 721. How can I determine what is a compulsion without turning that into an obsession? Okay, this was such a great question. I'm going to see if I can answer it fully, and maybe you'll give me some more context below if there are specifics. But how can I determine what is a compulsion without turning that into an obsession? So I really believe that anything can become compulsive. And it's all about the function that's behind that thing. If we are doing something from a space of trying to get rid of discomfort, which might come in the form of anxiety or guilt or shame or any feeling that we deem kind of icky, that thing can be compulsive. So we know, some common compulsions that we think about with OCD can be in the form of checking, right? Or in the form of Googling, maybe in the form of ruminating, in the form of mental review. But they can also be in the form of praying, in the form of other practices that for someone else might be really meaningful and value driven. Practices in and of themselves, I like to say, are not compulsive. Like someone could Google in a non-compulsive way, but as soon as we're doing it repetitively in order to alleviate anxiety, that becomes compulsive. So in trying to determine what a compulsion is, we ask, well, what's the function of the thing we're doing? Why in the world are we doing it? Are we doing it from a space of meaning, connection, joy, genuine curiosity? Or are we doing it from a space of fear, anxiety, discomfort? Does it feel really urgent? Is always kind of my favorite question. Do I feel like I have to do this thing right now, or could I wait a week and would it be fine? If it's feeling urgent and for all those scary reasons, it may, in fact, be a compulsion. You can always talk with your provider about this. But any of these things, as you said, might also turn into an obsession. I know that some people, me included, have started to obsess about whether or not that thing is a compulsion or it's not. Because often with OCD, we want to make sure that we have it right. We can even start to have OCD about treatment, wondering, well, am I labeling that correct? And does that mean that I should be doing ERP around this? How do I navigate? And what I would encourage you with this is going back to the basics of, am I doing this from a space of meaning or anxiety and urgency? Once we do that, or once we talk to our provider, we get to drop it. We don't get to continue to go around and around and around to make sure that we are right about it. We get to trust that decision that we're making, and we get to continue to step forward so that it doesn't become kind of another product of our OCD. And that might take a leap of faith that we could, in fact, be wrong. And that's a part of the process too, and that's okay. Yeah. So Amy at 721 with the self-compassion component. It says, remember the reasoning behind the oxygen mask speech on the plane before takeoff. This is one of my all-time favorite things. And Amy, I'm so glad you brought this up. And folks don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about putting that oxygen mask on yourself before you assist others. And the reasoning behind that is, if you don't have your oxygen mask on, you aren't going to be in a space to continue to help those around you. You're not going to be able to continue to move forward. But going back to that advocacy and advocacy burnout, if you take care of yourself, if you make sure that you're able to continue to step forward, you can continue to advocate. You can continue to help so many more people. If we try to answer 5,000 people today, we might not be able to answer anyone tomorrow, rather than taking care of ourselves and being able to do that over a long period of time. And this is said from someone who has struggled with that in lots of different areas. I think it always feels like it's different for us, or at least it's always felt for me like it's different for me. I think, and it's been an OCD thing, but if I'm for a long time, I was like, oh, it's because I'm a minister or because I'm a chaplain. Like, I have to hold myself to this higher standard. Now, everybody with OCD thinks we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we don't. I always felt like I was the one who needed to run myself into the ground to make sure everybody was okay. I'm curious if others resonate with that. And I want you to know that you don't have to. That same grace you would give those around you to take care of themselves, to take a break. You are worthy of that. You're helping yourself, and you're also helping everybody else around you who is going to continue to be able to, receive support from you, receive your sunshine, all of those things. Let's see. I see Oklahoma. Let's see. I see Mike Sizemore. Hi, Mike. All of these awesome advocacy components, and some are on resource. Oh my goodness. I love this. There are so many awesome kind of advocacy components happening in the chat. Thank you all so much for that. I'm going to keep scrolling just to see if there are more questions. I see documentaries. I see lots of, again, advocacy. Okay. Are there any more questions here? Okay. So I'm going to pull another question from earlier on Instagram. So this one I think is kind of along the lines of what we were just talking about. So let me pull this. Okay. So I'm curious what folks think about this one. Someone said, my therapist says I need to focus on the RP more. What does that mean? So RP is response prevention. And I see some self-compassion comments that I missed. I have to go back to you. Sorry for the distraction, y'all. I'm just literally loving all of the conversation. But ERP, we always talk about it on these streams, exposure and response prevention. So exposure is that hard thing that we're doing as a part of our treatment in order to kind of trigger our OCD. I always say in order to get kind of OCD to come out of its cave and do the things that it does when we experience triggers on a daily basis. But the RP is actually the really important part. The RP is the response prevention. It's not engaging with the OCD. It's showing OCD that we can sit with all of that anxiety, that we can, some of y'all know I say stick with the ick, that we can stick with the ick and keep moving forward. That's actually what makes the OCD smaller. Us doing that response prevention, us not engaging in those physical compulsions or those mental compulsions. Now, sometimes the tricky thing, and for the person who put this in, this might be what your therapist is talking about. Sometimes we can feel really great about doing the biggest and the best, most awesome exposures, and then we don't do any of the response prevention. That was my life for a really long time. I was always really proud. I did all of the hardest possible stuff on my hierarchy. And then I would go engage in compulsions because I was so fearful. I would spend the rest of the day, even without knowing it at the time, ruminating, trying to make sure that I was safe, trying to make sure everyone else was safe. And without knowing it, I was making my OCD a lot bigger. So Dr. Emily Bailey, who I don't know if she's watching or not. If you are, I'm giving you a shout out. Emily always talks about having a little e and a big RP. And I really love thinking about that. And something that you can, of course, work with your treatment team and your therapist on of, yes, that exposure is important, but really focusing on that response prevention and making sure that we are not engaging in compulsions, whether those are physical or mental, so that we can make OCD smaller. Um, I see Zachary at 728. How do you know when you've given it your all and it's time to give up? Zachary, there is never, and I believe this pretty strongly, and I would love others to respond to you in the chat to you. And I'm thinking that you're kind of talking about treatment here. I never think that there is a time to give up on treatment. I deeply, deeply, deeply believe that there is hope. And again, this is coming from someone who didn't think there was. I thought and wanted to give up for quite a while. I felt like I'd hit rock bottom, and like treatment couldn't possibly work for me. Like it could work for every other person under the sun, but not me. And I was very thankful to have a treatment team and to have people around me that didn't give up on me. I know Ethan was very much the same. I see other folks in the comments who have experienced the same thing. I felt like I had given it my all, and I just wasn't moving forward. But I was very thankful to have some folks who helped me with different approaches, who helped me kind of determine my values and how I might be able to step forward in a different way. And as opposed to just hitting it harder, focus more on response prevention, focus more on kind of some different treatment tools. So Zachary, I really believe this. There's never a time with treatment to give up, because I really believe that you can. And if you want to message me about this separately, I'm happy to share this, that you can, and that you're deserving of reclaiming your life. Lots more advocacy. Yeah, getting COVID. My guys getting COVID was so triggering. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Phyllis, I see it's 7:30. I so relate to this, and I don't agree with it, but I relate. Self-compassion feels like cheating to me. Oh, I so see this, and that I felt like that for such a long time. It felt like, well, do I deserve to be nice to myself? And I want you to know you do. Like you are so deserving of compassion. OCD wants us to feel like we're not, and you are. And I'm curious if you're able to see that with everybody around you, that they're deserving of some level of compassion, and what it might look like to offer that back to yourself. Yeah, love Lana. Self-compassion is tough for you too. I see Matt talking about Kim, who is amazing. Beth, yeah, along with the self-compassion conversation too, at 7:31, I get mad when I give into OCD. So I don't give myself self-compassion as much as I should. I'm getting better at it though. So I'm so glad that you're getting better at that, because I think it is so incredibly important. Here's what I think happens. This is kind of what's happened to me. I used to, when I would give into my OCD, get so mad at myself. I'll be honest, sometimes this happens now. I'll get really annoyed at myself. I'll be like, well, I talk about OCD all day long. Like all I do is stuff on scrupulosity, and I gave in. Like, who am I to give into my OCD? I must be a horrible person. I must be a fraud. I must be an imposter. And as I say that, you hear me saying some really mean things to myself. I immediately feel myself sink, and then I don't have motivation to continue to step forward and to fight my OCD. Especially as someone who thinks really black and white, a lot of times then I jump to, well, I already messed it up. I already did that compulsion. I might as well do a bunch more. And that is not helpful. What I have found is really helpful is to give myself compassion without being satisfied when I do a compulsion. So that is saying, you know what? I engaged in that compulsion. It was not my favorite thing to do, but I have OCD, and OCD is really, really hard. I can give myself lots and lots of love in the midst of that. And because of that love, I want more for my life. And I'm going to choose tomorrow to try to not engage in that compulsion and to step forward differently. I've actually found that giving myself compassion gives me more room to step forward with recovery, as opposed to feeling like everything is just thrown out the window. Val had to let go of feeling guilty. Yeah, guilt. We talk about discomfort often with OCD. And I think when we say discomfort, sometimes we just think of anxiety, But discomfort can come in so many forms. For me, guilt and shame, those have been the two core for me, like forever. I actually have been able to navigate the anxiety aspects pretty well. But for me, guilt and shame have been these pieces that it always felt like, how could I possibly step forward with this? I need to make sure that everything's okay. Can't handle these feelings. And the reality is that we can and that we can step forward, but those can feel really, really, really tough. Matt, yeah, learning that OCD is ego dystonic and doesn't define who you are allowed you to fully embrace self compassion. 10,000%. Um, And Amy, yeah, y'all are saying better stuff than I am. What would you say to a loved one in your situation? You deserve the same compassion. I see conversations on guilt. Um, then I see a question at, um, oh, I see Summer say, hi, Chris. Did I miss Chris? Is he somewhere here? Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. Oh, hey, Chris Tron. I guess you might have seen him pop up. It was like, I don't see Chris. Okay, Matt Bannister at 734. Could you talk on value-based exposures with ACT, Katie? I just love ACT for giving us a why when doing the hard things and not white knuckling. Oh, yes, all of this. So first, if folks don't know what we're talking about with white knuckling, in essence, is we are choosing to engage in an exposure, but we aren't fully leaning into it. I actually imagine it that we are actually white knuckling physically in the process. We're like, okay, we're doing the thing, but we don't want the bad, scary things to happen. I can make it. I can make it. When is it over? That isn't going to help. Really, the attitude around our exposures and response prevention really matters. Shala nicely always says, putting our shoulders back and going, yep, I am so pumped to get anxious today. I cannot wait to handle this thing, even if we're not fully feeling that. It makes a big difference when it comes to acceptance. And with value based exposures, we're really considering why we're doing those hard, scary things. When we talk about values in ACT, we're talking about not really a goal, but we're setting the things that are the most significant to us as a compass that we're continuing to move toward. And it gives us really a reason for doing those hard, scary things. I've talked about this a couple times on streams, but at my sickest, I was really fearful that I was a horrific, dangerous person. I was doing a lot of grief, trauma, and loss work. And every funeral I did, I figured out how I was somehow responsible for that. And it felt so scary. And the exposures that I was having to do around that felt just as scary. I was doing a lot of scripting around all of those things actually being my fault. I was rating fake news headlines about me going to prison for crimes going on in Atlanta that were my fault when I didn't know about them. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And it felt so terrifying. It felt so risky. It felt like, what if I really am all of these things? And I don't think I would have turned the corner without leaning into values. So for me, it kind of became this shift of I'm willing to risk all of the scary stuff coming true in order to move forward with my life because of the things that I care so much about. So for me, and they've kind of shifted throughout time, but for me, one of my biggest values is family. And at the time, and she still is, my mom has navigated cancer treatment for a long time now. She has multiple myeloma, an incurable blood cancer. And at the time, I would actually think about the time that I wanted to be able to spend with my mom and the amount of time that OCD had taken away from me. And this sounds really, really, really harsh, but my therapist at the time had me have a voice recording on my phone from my mom that said, if you engage in this compulsion, you are willingly giving into OCD and choosing to make yourself sicker. And that sounds super harsh, but I would listen to that and make the choice to not engage in a compulsion and to rather do exposures and to do response prevention, all because of this value where I was willing to risk some of that really hard, scary stuff in favor of even just a chance of being able to spend time not sick, but present in some way, shape, or form with my mom while she was struggling. So that was something that was always really meaningful to me. I also really, along with that, like this concept that we already know kind of what's going to happen with OCD. If we continue to go down the same path that we've been going down, if we continue to engage with compulsions, we know we're going to get sicker. The thing we don't know is if we do something different. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know that if you do something different, you have a chance of stepping forward from OCD and living an awesome life. And that's a risk, whatever that looks like. That's a risk that I think we can absolutely be willing to take. Okay, let me keep scrolling down in these last 10 minutes to see if, oh, I do see Chris Tronston. Hi, Chris. I don't know why I didn't see you earlier. So glad that you're on here. Oh, Zach, 736. Such a good question. How can I make more friends with OCD without letting OCD convince me everyone hates me? So I'm hoping as I get further down, folks have addressed this, but I would love for folks to, however you want to, raise your hand in the chat if this is something that you have navigated, because this is such a reality for so many people with OCD. OCD kind of makes us sometimes see the world through this fatalistic filter. I always imagine that there's the actual world, and then we put on our OCD glasses and we're like, wow, everything is terrifying. Everyone hates me. That's kind of what OCD does. And for me, actually, one of my core fears is, what if I'm a bad person? So something that I had to work on for a long time was every time I made a friend, every time I interacted with someone, I would think, oh, you know what? They are just pretending to be nice to me. They secretly hate me. They secretly think I'm annoying. It's still honestly something I navigate sometimes, even with meetings, getting on. This has been kind of a trend for me. And Ethan picks on me about this. I used to have someone email me or call me and say, hey, can you meet? And I would tell Ethan, scared that when I get on, they're going to tell me the reason they're meeting with me is actually because they hate me and never want to talk to me again. It's funny when I say it out loud. Why would someone call me to meet with me to tell me they hate me? But this is what our brain says with OCD. So your question, how can I make more friends with OCD without letting OCD convince me everyone hates you? That narrative from OCD right now might exist. It might be there. I know sometimes it's there for me. But the more you give yourself permission to make friends with OCD and allow kind of the scary stuff to be there, but act in a different way by challenging that narrative, by hanging out with them anyway, by allowing yourself to have fun and let your guard down without trying to protect against all of that scary stuff, OCD is eventually going to learn that that's a false narrative. And you're going to be able to have a lot more fun. And in the process, you're going to gain a lot more friends with OCD. Want you to know that, again, so many of us navigate that. And especially if anyone wants to come to the conference this summer, which I hope you do, it's something that we can all navigate together, because I think that's one thing that a lot of people face kind of when they head there. And at the same time, Zach, you are not alone. And like, oh, how do I not offer reassurance? We feel that with you and we want to be friends with you. So I hope you hear that. And I see others struggling with that too. And thank you, Chris. Thank you for the kind words. Chris, you are always killing it. And Chris, I know, did an awesome job with camp this weekend, along with other folks here in the chat. Okay, let me see if there are any. Oh, wow, there are so many more comments and questions. Let me scroll to see if I see a question mark. This is, people are saying, do not give up. You can live with this. Don't let OCD win. Don't stop. Y'all, it's going to make me cry. Y'all are the best. Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling down. Y'all, this is amazing. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I've answered all the questions. And if not, I'm going to pull kind of one more. I'm glad the act metaphor was helpful. Y'all, oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to pull one more. It kind of just keeps going. Okay, I'm going to pull one more question from Instagram today, and I think I hit everything on here. If I didn't, please email me after, and that is totally and completely fine. And I am going to pull. Let's see. So we actually answered, sorry, y'all are listening to me kind of like think out loud. Okay, actually, I'm gonna go back to something that we addressed a little bit earlier. It's similar to one on here, but I'm not gonna copy and paste it. Thank you for letting me just talk to myself briefly. Um, Mental compulsions, because I said I would go back to that early on in this stream. How do we recognize and respond to mental compulsions? I don't remember whose question this was a part of, but I do remember it was somewhere. So glad to be looping back to this. Um, so I think mental compulsions can be really tricky because sometimes they can feel really automatic and it can feel like we don't even know they're happening. I know for some folks it can feel difficult to even separate, well, what's an obsession and what's a compulsion. For me, how I've kind of navigated this in my own life is recognizing that that initial thing that pops up, that initial kind of thought that we go, huh, weird, that's our intrusive thought. That's our obsession. Anything that comes after that, as we engage with that, becomes the compulsion. So in our mind, as soon as we go, huh, that's a weird thought. Why did I have that thought? Should I be having that thought? Let me think through all of the reasons that that thought actually wouldn't happen and all of the reasons in the past that I wouldn't have done anything like. I mean, whatever that form that takes, as soon as we start to engage with picking apart the thought, thinking about past memories, thinking about what it means, why we had it, what our intent is, all of those things are the compulsion, everything except that initial thought itself. And the cool thing is when we recognize that that is a compulsion, that we are ruminating, that that is a mental compulsion, we get to do something about it. And a lot of times it feels automatic and like we can't, and this can be such a process. But I think just noticing that is the first step. And for me, it became like a muscle where rather than beating myself up, I would say, ooh, you know what? I recognize that I moved from that intrusive thought to rumination. I have a really cool opportunity here to come back to the moment. I would plug into my five senses and try to come back to the moment. Now, at the beginning, every 2 to 3 seconds, I might notice that I was ruminating again. And I would go, oh, look, you know what? That's happening again. I have another really cool opportunity to come back to the moment. It's kind of like going to the gym and continuing to build a muscle where over time you're able to notice a little bit more and you're able to continue to come back. And that time gets further and further and further between. That was something that was really helpful for me as somebody who felt like it was so automatic for such a long time and where I had trouble differentiating. Okay. Um, Awesome. Okay. I see it looks like there might be a couple more. Oh, and I do see Beth. Sorry, I missed that. Wondering if it might be helpful to think about actually getting COVID. I would encourage you to talk to your therapist and your treatment team about that because I do think, sometimes that can be really effective in the form of scripting. But there are other times where there can be compulsions that come up around that too. So I want to make sure that you're talking with your team about what would be the most helpful for you to not exacerbate your OCD. I'm also happy to chat more about that. If you send me a message too, more in the context, that can be wonderful. Okay, so let me, before I wrap up, do some closing announcements. So just so thankful for everybody for being here and want you to know that we would love to hear from you. You can take our live stream survey to tell us what you'd like to see on this platform. We really look forward to your feedback. The survey can be found at iocdf.org/livestream survey. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This live stream is one of many. You can see the entire schedule of future streams at iocdf.org/livestreams. And you can also view recordings of past live streams, as well as watch our hosts answer your pre-submitted questions, OCD Mailbag, on the IOCDF's YouTube channel, youtube.com/IOCDF. Remember to like and subscribe to get notified when live streams are scheduled. And finally, you can sign up for IOCDF news and updates at iocdf.org/signup. And if you need resources or are looking for a therapist, please visit iocdf.org. The resource page there is my favorite thing that I send folks on a daily basis. The IOCDF is also a donor-supported nonprofit organization. Please consider making a donation at iocdf.org/donate. We have a ton of awesome streams coming up for you. We would love to have you plug in next week, Wednesday, January 31st, for an awesome Ask the Experts at 12 p.m. Eastern. And then Tuesday, February 6th, I guess, oh yeah, that's tomorrow. Sorry, not next week. strike that. How is it the end of January, y'all? Sorry. Tomorrow, Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, Ask the Expert. So please plug in. And for anything that you didn't get answered tonight, I'm sure Chris and Liz would love to answer with you. And then Tuesday, February 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm excited to be here with Chris and Liz and some other awesome advocates as we talk about this kind of topic of navigating things that we see about OCD or things that we see that might be difficult headlines, and how do we navigate that with our own OCD journey. So I know we have a fancier title than that, but we are really excited to talk with you about that. So all of this, before we jump off, I just want to say thank you. It is always such a gift. I know Ethan's usually on this stream with y'all, and it is such just an incredible, incredible gift to be here with all of you. And tonight, I don't know if you saw, I got distracted so many times and was so moved just seeing, oh, no one took advantage of the substitute teacher, Amy. I love that. That's awesome. As you see me now, I'm getting distracted by the comments, but it's really because all of you are amazing. And this stream in particular, you support one another and you are showing up here. You are advocating in just beautiful ways. And every time I get on here, you inspire me. And I go off saying, I want to fight my OCD in big ways because of the things that y'all are saying and because of the things that you all are doing. So incredibly thankful for you. And just want to leave you tonight with this idea that there is absolutely hope. I know that Val in the chat says, stay encouraged and never surrender or throw in the white flag. We have each other, and love Val so much. And just want to echo that. Like, we are all in this together. And if you are feeling like you're alone in this moment, want you to know that you are not. And there is so much hope. And speaking from someone who didn't think that was the case just a few years ago, wherever you are in this moment, there is hope. And just keep putting one foot in front of the other because you are so deserving of a big, beautiful, awesome life. So thank y'all for being here tonight, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and love you all. Love you, Matt, Spence, Beth, everybody.